On this episode, Max scores the max, points that is. Ferrari disappoints and Nico trolls Lewis. We also would like to join Lando in saying happy birthday to Will's mum from this, the Track Limits podcast. And hello and welcome to the Track Limits podcast.
I thought we were having a moment where we just saw who could hold the silence, the awkward silence.
No, of course. We just put a little music there. But hello and welcome to the Track Limits podcast. My name is Taylor and I am joined here. Folks, don't believe the rumors. He's back. Harrison has joined the show. I'd like to start out
talking. Were there rumors that I wasn't coming back?
I'd actually like to start off with that. I saw some discussion online regarding Harrison and the podcast contract negotiations.
Okay.
And I will say that Harrison, if you're okay with me sharing that, the contract negotiations did get a little testy at times, but he has agreed to stay on for free to the Track Limits podcast. And for that, we are very thankful for him. Very thankful.
This was also rumors and news to me.
Yeah. It's your people working behind the scenes, my people and your people. You know, we're
Those
just
are managers.
here.
Yeah,
we're here what you call the talent.
Yeah, we let our fake manager, our imaginary managers handled that one.
Exactly right. So it's all taken care of. So anyway, congratulations on that. Now let's actually get to the race. We were at Imola for the.
Hey, well, I guess we could talk about. Speaking of contracts,
how do you want to talk about?
Carlos Sainz signing to 2 more years.
Carlos Sainz signed 2 more years at Ferrari.
Carlos signed.
So what's that mean for Mick Schumacher?
That means he's sticking with Haas for a while until he proves that he is worthy of that Ferrari.
I would like to start there before we get to the race because I've been seeing some stuff online, especially some lovely hot takes that he actually really needed Nikita Mazepin to make him look better, and that Kevin Magnussen is really just putting on a clinic. Also, Kevin Magnussen's been a driver for much longer than he has. Don't know if you want to blame cars. I don't know, whatever, but just
I mean, it's got to be something along the lines of experience. Like Mick's still only in his second year with the team. Kevin was there for a few more. Overall driving experience, but it does seem that Mick has a lot more to prove now because we've seen Kevin Magnussen in a decent Haas, and we've seen only Mick in a bad Haas, and now it's seemingly in a decent Haas again, and slight improvement from Mick, but getting beat consistently.
I'm going to move over to qualifying now because some discussion about that qualifying. If there wasn't a sprint race, that qualifying could have been set up for a much better Grand Prix because of where everybody was at the end of qualifying. Agree or disagree with that, Harrison? Did we lose out on a good and an even better, I don't want to say it was bad, Grand Prix because of the sprint race?
I think that's a loaded question. And
unload it for me.
I say that because the sprint essentially put the grid back where it would have been with just a normal qualifying. Had the tricky situation, it had been dry, it not been mixed conditions, etc. Except for the fact that had we not had the sprint to set the field the way it was, the race would not have ended up the way that it did.
Yeah.
So I think if we had had a dry race, we would have a completely different story. But I don't think the sprint negated the bad. If it had been a dry race, I think it would have. But because it wasn't dry, I don't think the sprint negated the qualifying situation.
Anything you want to say about qualifying?
Yeah, Carlos signs the deal and blew it in qualifying.
Can we also talk about Haas's, I believe it's their best qualifying
K-Mag fourth, Lando third. No, he was fifth or third and then fifth in the sprint. But yeah. Some shocks. McLaren back. Vettel in the top 10.
Yeah.
Again, back to Haas, though. Kevin Magnussen, Q3, Mick outside of the points in qualifying. So, is Yuki Tsunoda a better driver than Pierre Gasly now? Who knows? But yeah, I mean, McLaren seemingly found their form for qualifying. The wet conditions definitely made it. I mean, you see Lance Stroll qualifying well, not as well as we would have expected in the wet. But yeah, shook it up a little bit. But at the end of the day, it didn't really matter when we had the sprint the next day.
With the sprint, obviously new format where points are given to the top 8. Max, they're making a big deal that Max was the first person to ever, this is what, the 4th sprint race, excuse me, just sprint.
Yeah, the 4th sprint.
The first person to ever overtake for the lead.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, I guess it's only the 4th one, but you get the lead and you just keep it.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to do anything. I mean, we saw it during the race, and I just want to say, because of the wet conditions, I'd like to talk about later with the DRS situation. When there was no DRS,
they can't pass.
Crofty was getting upset because they can't pass. At one point, he was almost 8 seconds ahead.
We talked about this earlier in the season, where they're making a huge deal about these cars being able to follow. And yeah, they can follow, and they can follow for 58 laps. Ask them to pass each other, and that's a whole different story.
Yeah,
it's like they can get right up on them, and then they just can't pass. And I don't know if that's track specific, if that's where the passing zones and where the braking zones are specific, but you would think that Lewis Hamilton Mercedes driven car would be able to pass at least one car on track, and a slow Williams and a slow AlphaTauri, and he could. So, yeah. And speaking of passing and in the sprint, it was almost an exact replica of last year, or in this past hybrid era, because of when Max caught Charles, right? The whole thing in Saudi Arabia was, bless you, somebody gets past, but they can come right back at it. It's just like go-karts. But you saw Max
over and over again.
Max catches him, passes him, and then is 6 seconds ahead.
Yep,
just in 2 laps, because he couldn't keep up with him. Yep. So it's like we're right back where we were. We're getting DRS trains. We're getting non-DRS trains because nobody can pass. It's just, I don't know. It left something to beat us, and everybody's like the midfield battles are on the edge of your seat, but it's just 4 cars in a row driving fast, which is cool, I guess, to see. It's just, it would be nice to see them pass each other.
It was interesting listening to the radio, the constant, this is during the race, constant discussion of, well, if there's a safety car, which I know happens, but that so much of this race was depending on strategy where they really needed a safety car because they had no hope without it. That just wasn't, I don't know, enjoyable, entertaining to me.
It was almost like there wasn't any, there was large periods of the race where there just was nothing going on. Like there was stuff going on if you're like a racing fan, where I was like, can this person pass? There was storylines like Valtteri Bottas passing, like getting up into the top 10, being in 5th with, trying to pass George Russell on a struggling Mercedes finishing 4th, Lewis Hamilton out of the points, the Aston Martin's finally scoring points, the McLaren's looking like they're back to their old ways, the Ferrari struggles. Like there was a lot of storylines, and there was points where there was drama, but for the most part, wasn't super excited.
No. Let's talk about the moments where I like to write down the moments where I scream at the TV. First one was definitely Carlos.
Where Daniel Ricciardo
with Daniel Ricciardo.
Yep. Who was at fault? Who do you think was at fault?
I mean, that's tough. I mean, they kept calling it
a pretty easy decision, but
no, it was a racing incident.
It was a racing incident.
It was a
But it was
racing incident where it
100%
was
Daniel
definitely
Ricciardo's
Daniel
fault
Ricciardo's fault. Yes.
because he got up on the curb. I feel bad for Carlos because he's just had like a string of he's had a string of bad luck, and now because where Charles is in the points, it's gonna turn into hey, let's do whatever we can to get Charles this championship. Which I mean, it probably would have been anyways if we're being honest with ourselves. Just kind of unfortunate for him to have signed the contract, had a really bad weekend on top of his not so great weekend the last time out. Uh, it was hard to watch for him. I felt bad for him, especially because it wasn't his fault this time.
Then what do you think of the strategy where they had Charles come in and
Put the softs on.
put the softs on for fastest lap, and one thing leads to another, yada yada yada.
I mean,
He
it's
hits the curb.
yeah, it's easy to say that that's the reason. I see why they did it though. Is I think they felt second was the best they could do anyways. Why not try to catch Sergio out? Put the softs on, and then it ends up putting him behind Lando. Has to get past Lando, and then pulls a Charlie Leclerc and bends it in the chicane.
An interesting thing that was brought up in the cooldown room, which is now back.
Loved it.
So you can all sit there in awkward silence while they watch.
It's like here's an awkwardly forced moment between three people. You guys
oh,
just go
hey,
in there
look,
and hang
this
out.
is playing. Yeah.
And it's like, get some water.
But it gave the insight because, they didn't really see too much of Charles along the track, but Max and Sergio and even Lando pointing out that they saw him hitting that curb.
Yeah, where the fact that you can be in front of somebody and see it behind you and like, oh, I saw him go this way and then that way.
Yeah, but he had been hitting that curb all day and finally just pressed his luck.
I think that's like the stuff that I love is like, we talked about it last year with Carlos, having the awareness of what's going on around you and to know what needs to happen, when it needs to happen, but at the same time, driving a car, hitting it perfectly because Charles proved the minuteness of him. His move to the left causes you to spin. But to be able to do all of that all at once while driving that car, I think is pretty impressive. That's the stuff that I like to kind of see behind the scenes of what these drivers are capable of doing is pretty cool.
Yeah. Speaking of having awareness at all times, such as checking a mirror, congratulations to Aston Martin for getting in the points. Just want to.
You think in the debrief last race, they were like, now, Lance, if you look in your mirrors, you can see what's behind you.
Oh, God. No,
that's the Will Buxton line is you don't know what's behind you unless you look in your mirrors.
Yeah.
But yeah, good for Aston Martin. I still, tricky conditions. They did what they needed to do. Seb put in a good performance. Lance Stroll held on to 10th. I'm not ready to give them credit and say they're back though, because there was one race and they kind of just held on to it. And I know that's crazy because, I'm sure we'll talk about McLaren in a minute and we're about to give them all the credit in the world, but I want to say I want Aston Martin to be good so bad. And they had one race and they did well. Congratulations. I'll give them their credit. They did what needed to be done with the DNFs and, the McLaren and Ferrari wrecking each other. They did what they needed to do. However, I'm not willing to say they're back. I want to see them back. I want the supervillain team. I want them to be the supervillain team that beats everybody. But I just don't see it happening. Sorry,
I just love we just go back and forth on Aston Martin all the time. He wants them to be the supervillain evil team.
I want them to be great, but they are terrible. And I'm not willing to say that they're, back to decency.
Cool.
Doesn't mean I like them. Doesn't mean I want to be their fan. But I think it's cool to have a team that everybody hates. But it's like I just want to see a team that everybody hates be the best so that we all have something in common is to hate this team and they just embrace it and they full on supervillain. Dad owns the team, son drives for the team, black facility, senior, and senior junior going at them. That's a Kim Possible reference for everybody that didn't get it. That's what I want. But I'm just not willing to say that they're even back to midfield right now. But I
Well,
mean, and like I said, like we'll give McLaren credit because they were bad, but this is 2-3 weeks in a row they've shown improvement and they finished on the podium. So
congratulations to McLaren and happy birthday to Will's mom, Charlotte.
It was a nice moment. Also, it's really nice to see McLaren back in contention. Now, granted, it did also take them some DNFs, but hey, and
They're back.
But I think they're back to the third best team.
Okay,
maybe fourth. Mercedes behind Mercedes. Them and Mercedes is going to be the battle for third.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, do you want to talk about Mercedes now?
Yeah, I do. Because I teased in the beginning that Nico was trolling Lewis the entire time, which I was like, okay, man. Talking about how he and George have the same car. I don't
listen. Lewis Hamilton can take it.
Yeah,
Valtteri got it for years. Same car, but can't compete. I think that the tide has turned.
And my God!
Now Lewis is going to have to take it.
When Lewis got lapped by Max, oh, how humiliating! Yeah. Oh,
Mercedes has a problem, and they need to address it. But yeah, I agree. The whole Max and Lewis, like there was like a fake graphic that was like Lewis was 77 seconds behind. It's like, why does that even matter? He's 14th.
They had that preloaded.
Yeah, and it's like they want to make this a thing, and it's not a thing anymore. And it's like we just have to accept that Mercedes isn't what we all thought they were going to be this year. And George is trying, and not that Lewis isn't trying. He's just a step behind seemingly at this point.
Well, it's not his fault, as Toto made perfectly clear in that post-credit scene.
Listen, I have a hot take.
Let me hear it.
I have ESPN with your shirt. I almost wore an ESPN hat and you're wearing an ESPN shirt. Nice. ESPN bulletin board material, first take topic.
Okay.
Lewis Hamilton is no longer the number one driver at Mercedes. This team is geared towards Max Verstappen. Do I actually believe this? No, but would I be shocked if it was a thing? No. I mean,
Max Verstappen.
I mean, George Russell. Sorry.
I was gonna say, whoa.
Sorry, I misspoke. I was going real ESPN. They're all former Max. No, George Russell is the number one driver at Mercedes because he's finishing higher.
Has the black camera thing, yeah.
Yeah, he's the number one car. The gears towards the cars geared. I mean, the man had a wing adjustment that wasn't done to switch from the dry or from the wets to the dry, and still held on to fourth. And you're telling me that car is geared more towards Lewis Hamilton, who couldn't pass Pierre Gasly for the life of him, 30 plus laps behind him?
That was pretty bad.
Hot take alert. Lewis Hamilton demoted to number 2. New Valtteri Bottas. Which, if we're moving on from Mercedes, Valtteri Bottas out of nowhere into 5th and probably could have almost passed George. Which goes back to the cars not being able to pass, because if the cars would have been able to pass, Mick Schumacher caught them.
Yeah.
When they were battling, like, because Valtteri just couldn't get by.
Yeah.
So something needs to be done with these cars to make them pass.
And all the porpoising. I just don't know how they don't have brain damage from all this porpoising.
I can't. It can't be comfortable.
No,
it can't be comfortable, and it's got to be annoying. The rattling and bouncing.
Bringing up something with not passing that Crofty just couldn't let go, and that's the lack of DRS for the beginning of the race.
Hey, he was really irritated.
He was really upset about that.
I mean, makes sense. I think a lot of people were, because it's funny how we went from maybe the DRS is too powerful to, oh my gosh, if we don't get DRS now, we're going to riot.
Yeah. They can't race like this.
They proved they need it to pass this week.
Yeah.
And maybe it was just the track. I guess we'll find out next week or 2 weeks from now, next race.
Miami.
But yeah, I mean, there's something that's got to be done with this passing situation. And I'm not an engineer, so I have no idea what needs to be done, but it just seems like there was a lot of following really closely and not a lot of overtaking.
I do also want to say that although I'm wearing an ESPN shirt, I would like to announce that they need to fix their app. I can't get it to work. I cannot get it to work. I had to buy F1 TV, and even then, I can't press the red button for my Sky Q and Sky
Hey,
Q
let
and
me ask
Sky
this:
Quest.
when you go onto F1 TV,
Mhm.
do you get to pick your broadcast, or is it
Yes, you
so you
can
get to pick
choose.
like Sky Sports or F1's?
You choose your commentary language. So I
Mhm.
chose English, and you can choose F1 International, which will be whichever language you chose, which is Sky. Tracker, which has the whatever commentary you chose over the map, and then a data, which has their stats. Um, Now, I will say it does get a little interesting because it's all the F1 feed, so you don't see any of the Sky Sports stuff, or you don't see. You can hear them talking to like Christian Horner, but you don't see the picture in picture.
You hear them
You
go to
don't.
the Sky.
You hear them go to the. But what if they're like showing a replay or something? Like, oh, look at this. You can't see it. You're at the mercy of all of F1's
You're at the
production.
mercy of the
Which is
of
you
the
know how it
Formula
works.
One.
But and then they cut off after the podium. Because
You
then
don't get
they
you don't
start.
get the Simon and
They turn into
crew.
here's what's happening Premier League, and you don't get to see that.
Interesting. Yeah, I was just curious because you were talking about the app, so I was assuming you're on your phone.
No, I was actually on the Apple TV,
Oh,
and it's actually very easy to switch between drivers too. It's got all the drivers lined up, so you just
then you can watch the onboards.
yep, just
See,
click on through, and you
I
got the
just pulled it up
radios.
on my computer. I've thought about signing up for it.
Well, I
It's
gave you that
just
coupon code, man.
ESPN's free for me.
Yeah, well, you know,
Not for somebody, but it is for me.
must be nice. Must be nice to have ESPN, but you don't have it here, and you know, whatever.
Yeah,
Whatever.
Hey.
I'll just share my password with you for F1 TV.
Oh, thanks. I don't know that we could both watch it.
Just kidding. We can't do that. Can't do that, folks.
Yeah, Netflix. Sorry.
It's not gonna happen.
We'll get a company account. That's what we'll get.
Media account.
We'll get a media account. Hey, soon we're gonna be at every race.
We sure
Watching
are.
it
Virtual.
live HD in our eyes.
4K,
With
8K,
our own eyes.
20K,
20K.
2020.
Or in my case, plus 6K.
Plus 5 over here. Plus, we'll see it in plus 5 and plus 6K.
Adjusted K is what they call that. The adjusted aspect ratio of our eyeballs.
But you're not. Are you nearsighted or farsighted?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't know the difference.
Okay, I think you're plus 5. I'm -5. No, then you would be.
I don't know if it's negative.
You know what?
Plus.
I go to the doctor. They say I
It's a
need
6.
this, and I can't see anything.
I can see right in front of my face. I can't see more than an arm's length out in front of me.
That's about the same. Yeah.
Yeah, we blind.
Glad we covered that, folks. We couldn't be drivers because what if our contact fell out while we were racing?
Do you think that any of the drivers have? Surely they do. Surely they don't all have perfect vision.
Can't do it if you're a fighter pilot.
Charles wears glasses sometimes.
That's just there's no frames in there.
Yeah, probably true.
There's no lenses, I should say.
I wonder. Let's Google it.
Yeah, look this up because I'm intrigued. Contacts, F1 driver.
Let's see what they say. Yeah, they can.
Oh, nice.
They can wear glasses as well. Interesting. So we could still do it.
I was just waiting for it to be like Michael Schumacher wore contacts every single race, and he did fine.
He was actually blind.
What's the? I don't remember what I was going to say. It doesn't matter anymore.
Oh, okay. Should we talk more about the race?
Yeah, sure. What do you want to say about the race?
I don't know. I think we've covered it all. The cars can't pass. Aston Martin's back still by scored points. McLaren's back.
It was this weird in between where you didn't know if I heard it was going to rain.
What?
Have you ever seen the movie "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou"? Okay, well there's a part where George Clooney says it's a geographical oddity. This place is 2 weeks from everywhere. Well, that's how I felt with this rain. It was a geographical oddity. 20 minutes from everywhere.
Yeah,
rain's
it was
always
weird.
20 minutes or 20 laps away.
It was weird at the first because they were like, every team was like, hey, we see some spotty showers in about 10 minutes, 10 laps from now, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10 minutes.
10 minutes.
And then it was like, hey, you hear PDR on the call saying, that looks pretty dry out there, Crofty. Who's gonna pit for softs? Because these tires they're like weaving to get the wet spots to get the cool off the tires. And McLaren was able to, use Ricardo as the guinea pig. But then Seb came in not even half a lap later. So Sebastian Vettel taking the risks that he needed to take.
That was just great as they're saying, yeah, the rain's coming. It's going to hit over here at turn
7. Turn 7 was where it got wet.
Turn Vuvuzela or whatever the names are. I don't know.
Hey, speaking of like the wet, how about in qualifying, all of the people wrecking into Aqua Minerale? I don't know what turn that is, but the blue one.
It's got Aqua in the name.
Yeah, the one with the blue in it, just hitting that one little spot of the white and wrecking. I was surprised that didn't happen in the race at all. I don't know. I guess we don't know enough about driving cars fast that like it's crazy to me that it was happening so much throughout the weekend, and then you get to the race and it doesn't happen at all. Not one person. I think Nick was the only one that like spun. Checo went through the grass once. Charles.
I know Mick went through the grass once.
He went through the grass. That boy went through the grass a few times. That boy's got something wrong with his car, I think. Hey, but what about Yuki Tsunoda? The other young driver. Not that we're gonna talk bad about Mick, but Yuki Tsunoda, what a drive! Can't say enough about little Yuki.
And this is a Yuki fan cast now.
Hey, we love Yuki. He's speaking Italian. He speaks Japanese. He speaks English.
It's impressive. I'm doing Duolingo, so maybe
he uses a lot of curse words. And
sentence enhancers.
We love Yuki. We love to see Yuki do. We are a very pro people doing well podcast.
Absolutely.
But we'll let them know that they aren't doing well. And nobody's safe. Not even Lewis Hamilton, 7-time world champ, or 8-time, as Christian Horner would say. Just like all his
fair weather fans.
Yeah, I wonder. I've been staying off of the social medias lately, so I'm wondering who everybody is super fan of these days. I'm assuming it's Max or Charles, or McLaren. Obviously, McLaren's the best team, or most favorited team, as they would say.
Yeah.
Everyone's
most followed. Cool. Anything else you want to say?
What? Okay. I'll pose you a question and then I'll answer the question after you.
Okay.
What is your honest opinion? And I just went blank on the word I was about to use, but what is your honest take on where the racing in Formula One is now as compared to where you thought it was 3 races ago?
As in, do I think the product's gotten better in the last 3 races?
Yes. Because we were both very high on the new cars week 1 and 2. Do you still stand that high, or are you starting to back off of the take of
I'm actually still optimistic and do think it's still better. Sorry, Ed. Microsoft has decided now is the perfect time to do an auto update.
Yes.
You
have Microsoft?
No, Office. For Office. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. But anyway, no, I think the product is I'm still okay with it. This was the first, I don't know, because I don't remember the other races. But this is the first race where I felt like the cars were obviously having real trouble passing. I didn't have a problem with the other races. I do like where the unpredictability, the reliability issues that we kept talking about in previous races, and how are they going to fix the cars, and what were they going to do, and then we didn't even talk about Alonso's entire side of his car just flying off.
Yeah, it was strange.
And just how that completely destroys everything in the aerodynamics of the car. But I guess the long answer to short answer is I have not changed my opinion on the new cars. I still find it exciting. I'm excited to see what happens in Miami because it's a new track and see how the cars do on it. And they're going to be yachts.
True.
In a parking lot.
I was talking about that today. It's so silly that they're doing that. That's so silly. But I think I've taken a step back just because the past couple of races we've been talking about how the cars can't pass. And I get this past weekend was probably a bit to do with the weather conditions, and there was only one line that you could race on, but still, it's like we heard that was what these new cars were for. And maybe it's just too soon to say this, but part of me is like kind of sad that it's still a 2-horse race. Where we were kind of excited that there would be like 3 or 4 teams winning races consistently, but it's turned out to just be Red Bull and somebody else.
Ferrari.
Again. Well, and not that that's bad. It's cool to see a new person in Charles Leclerc win, but at the same time, my hopes were pretty high for 4 races, 4 winners. And we haven't seen that yet. Maybe we will. Maybe Mercedes turns it around. Maybe McLaren takes another step, but 3rd place is still a second off the lead. So I don't know. We'll see. It's still better to see the cars following closely. So who knows?
I don't know. I find it exciting with, I do think Mercedes is going to get it back. So they'll be in if they get in, we'll be fine. And McLaren, I mean, they had a 3rd place. So if they, if they're all in there.
I'm starting to be out on Mercedes. I know it's 4 races. I know it's very early in the season. And there's a long way to go. But they haven't shown any improvement.
Could I put you down for a hot take that Lewis doesn't win a race?
Yeah, put me down. Lewis doesn't win a race this year.
No way. That's a terrible hot take, Harrison.
How's that a terrible hot take? That's a genuine take. George will win before him.
Hold on. George? Okay. Do you want to double down? You want to say George wins before Lewis?
If Lewis wins a race, it's a fluke. And I love Lewis Hamilton. We're a very pro Lewis Hamilton show. However, I don't think he wins.
Number 1, George wins before Lewis. Number 2, Lewis doesn't win. Okay. It's signed.
Cool.
I don't. Wow.
No, just mark it down.
Betting against the 7-time world champ. Wow.
Everybody has their day where they don't win again. Even Michael Schumacher had it. Seb had it. Almost said something I shouldn't say. Cool. Anyways, anything else?
No, I'm good. This episode has been sponsored by nobody. If you like to get in contact with us, you can email us tracklimitspod@gmail.com or social media at tracklimitspod on Twitter or Instagram. Twitter now owned by Elon Musk. That doesn't matter to me. I don't care. Whatever. He can do whatever he wants with $44 billion. Leaving comments for the Stewards. Be sure to check this out on our YouTube channel. And we'll be back in just a little bit with our bonus episode. Everyone should be back today, I assume. I don't know. We'll see who joins.
We'll see you next week for the Yacht Club preview.
Hey! See you next time. Bye.